My name is Catherine, and I manage a design and research team for one of your favorite rideshare companies. What I like about Progress Texas is that you all are values-based. So rather than necessarily being connected with one party or another, you come back to what your values are, and it's about progressing society and looking to inform and let us know how we can think about those values as we make decisions for ourselves.
It's Monday, June 29th, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Progress Texas amplifies progressive values, leaders, and actions through our No Paywall podcasts and digital media. We make Texas politics easy to understand and to participate in, and your support for fact-based independent media hands the mic to millions of Texans. Thanks huge to Heather Hernandez-Yencho, Robert Clifford, and Ruth Kurzweil-Milburn for their ongoing sustaining support. Very much appreciated. So everybody's back home from Corpus Christi in the 2026 Texas Democratic Convention. For us at Progress Texas, it's hard to imagine a time when we work harder, but also have such a great and fulfilling time seeing great friends from across the state of Texas and meeting so many new friends, especially the literally dozens of nominees for a wide variety of offices and progressive champions doing all kinds of important work who we interviewed on Friday and Saturday. All of those interviews have been piled into two rather lengthy podcasts. Last couple of clicks on this podcast feed, and we refer you to the show notes in each of those two podcasts for a meticulous rundown of timestamps. If you're looking to hear from a particular interviewee, I enjoyed seeing parts of Corpus Christi that I hadn't seen before. That's a town full of really nice people and a town that's worth our attention and protection, as the people who live there continue to struggle through a really tough time with their water situation. There's a strength of spirit in Corpus Christi that's easy to fall in love with, and we really enjoyed our weekend down there. Speeches, speeches, speeches. So many speeches, a great many of which we captured and will be making available here, including that from Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, who was the headliner of the whole shebang late Saturday afternoon. Alejandro Serrano at the Texas Tribune agrees that T.O. Bernie completed the galvanizing of the convention, the fired-up main room in full fangirl mode as Sanders railed against the modern American oligarchy, demanding that the Progressive Party in Texas boldly push for transformation. Bernie's screaming what we're screaming, which is that it's not just about replacing Republicans with Democrats, it's about the high expectations for change that those Democrats will be assigned once they're in office. Bernie Sanders reminds us that Texas voters, quote, want to know what the Democratic Party stands for and what the Democratic Party is going to do to improve their lives when it gains power, unquote. The soaring cost of living and unaffordable health care were universal themes throughout the event, as were the condemnation of a multi-decade Republican regime beholden to billionaire donors and corporate interests rather than the public good. Turns out there's no better setting for that conversation than Corpus Christi, a city of over 300,000 people that's had its very lifeblood, its drinking water supply, sold out from under it to petrochemical companies at both the state and local level. Mainstream media outlets, frankly, including the Texas Tribune, continue talking about unity issues among the Texas Democratic Party, and while there were plenty of difficult conversations held and definitely hurt feelings over those discussions, generally speaking, unity was the overarching theme of this convention, and there was plenty of it to go around. One point of contention, a very inside baseball point of contention, was the internal struggle over the leadership of the party, which ended up being settled very much conclusively. Kayla Guo at the Trib says Texas Democratic Party Chair Kendall Scudder cruised to a landslide win for a full 4-year term of leadership for the Texas Dems, pulling about 3/4 of the vote, uniting the party apparatus amidst a critical midterm elections cycle. Scudder's challengers had run on complaints about internal staff turnover, operational turmoil, and the new chair's move to decentralize party operations away from the blue bubble of Austin. Our board at Progress Texas issued an endorsement of Chair Scudder's run for a full term as everyone was headed for the convention late last week. While the Dems have been canoodling in Corpus, the world has kept spinning and there's plenty to cover. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has been caught on camera doing some canoodling of his own, reportedly on a romantic sneak away to Iceland with his most recent love interest, Christian influencer Tracy Duhan. An inside Progress Texas source tells us multiple media outlets are breaking this somewhat tabloidy tale today, and we'll get more details from that. With this many affairs to keep track of, we'll be clear that this isn't the mistress central to the Ken Paxton impeachment. That was Laura Olson. Tracy Duhan is the next one, a married mother of 7 kids whom Paxton is said to have met on a trip to the Kentucky Derby in 2025. We also note that Paxton's wearing a Notre Dame jacket in this content, despite his pedigree as a Baylor graduate, perhaps a lame attempt at a disguise, but we'd know that smirky face anywhere. See the Daily Dispatch Substack post today for these goodies, link in the show notes. And by the way, that's a great way to keep up with us at Progress Texas if you prefer a version of the Daily Dispatch that you can read. Also, over the last few days, as Brett Wilkins at Common Dreams reports, Greg Abbott appointed Texas education officials continued escalating their assault on public education by approving a mandatory reading list that forces over 5 million Texas public school kids to read from the Bible. The Texas State Board of Education at this point is very blatantly constructing a narrative in which Texas is an officially and exclusively Christian state by mandating curriculum that whitewashes American history, erases women's history, ignores climate change, and sidesteps, if not actually attempts to justify, the genocide of American indigenous peoples. There's ample opportunity here for legal challenges on constitutional grounds, which is the likely next phase of this story as the Greg Abbott machine effectively turns public school into Sunday school. Again, we like to consider the tangible effects of leadership changes, promoting Democrat Gina Hinojosa to governor of Texas, for example, giving her the power of appointment over a lot of the statewide educational apparatus of Texas would bring a lot of this to a screeching halt. And speaking of which, Dan Patrick was a busy boy while Texas Dems were at the beach, appearing on Friday with Donald Trump in the Oval Office to declare the separation of church and state in America to be non-existent. The backlash was fast, as the First Amendment's Establishment Clause is a pretty convenient go-to for the rebuking of such a bizarre claim, which was part of Patrick's remarks on a new report from the Religious Liberty Commission he heads up at the federal level, in parallel with the Texas Senate committee dedicated to the same agenda at the state level. Once again here, elections matter. Democrat Vicki Goodwin, being elected lieutenant governor of Texas, would head off this bullshit as well. Back to the convention, where the degree of limp and lame Republican trolling out on the sidewalk outside Corpus Christi's Hilliard Center was, if nothing else, a sure sign of the growing desperation Texas Republicans are experiencing as November approaches, and Republican Congressman Keith Self amplifies that desperation in introducing a resolution to repeal the 17th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. That's the one that gives American voters the power over electing U.S. senators. Repealing it would strip those Americans of that right, relegating the call on who to send to the U.S. Senate back to the legislatures of individual states. The timing of this, as James Tallarico has MAGA in a full meltdown, is unmistakable. Alyssa High at Plano Magazine says the likelihood of this resolution actually passing is virtually zero, as the overturning of a constitutional amendment requires an overwhelming two-thirds majority in both congressional chambers, followed by a ratification of 3/4 of the states, an insurmountable hurdle for an unpopular regressive proposal that aims to explicitly restrict voter power. Keith Self was joined by 8 similarly lily-livered GOP electeds as co-sponsors of this somewhat hilarious but also somewhat ominous resolution, including Texas Republican Congressman Michael Cloud, who just happens to represent Northeast Corpus Christi in the U.S. House. We invite you to snag the merch to match your progressive values at our web store, which is live and ready to go at any time. If you came by the booth and we were out of your favorite Progress Texas merch, you can find it right now at ProgressTexas.org. We're talking Humans Against Abbott, Y'all Means All for Pride Month, and our very popular Resist shirts, stickers, and buttons. Hit the web store at ProgressTexas.org to support your favorite podcast network today. And that's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Monday, June 29th, 2026. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. When lies in Texas are well funded by the far right, your support for fact-based reporting is needed and appreciated. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day and a great week. We'll see you again right here tomorrow morning.